Hello and welcome. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to configure work folders on a Server 2019 computer and set up access to a workstation to that work folder. The purpose of having work folders is very similar to a feature like Dropbox or OneDrive, where data is synced from a server, say, to a local workstation, and that data is accessible whether that computer is connected to the network or not. So this is a very handy feature to have, especially for mobile users that needs to access data on their local computer that is normally on the network, and when the device is connected onto the network again, that data can actually sync to the server. So this lab here is a three-part series. The first part of this lab will be to install the roles and features that are required on the server to set up the shared folders or to set up the work folder. And that will also include setting up the first work folder. The second part is to create a self-signed certificate in IIS, or Internet Information Server. And the third part will be to configure the workstation to have access to the work folder that's created on the server. So the first thing that we need to do is to add the roles and features that are required. So in Server Manager, you can go ahead and click on the Add Roles and Features here, and just click Next, and the server that I have here is the only server in the network, so I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. And the role that I'm going to be adding is in File and Storage Services, and expand the File and iSCSI service. And I have to install this File Server Resource Manager. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to also add the work folders. Now, work folders will also require IIS to be installed. So I have to select the IIS web server role, and I'm going to click on Add Features. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. And that's all the role and features I require for now, or that will be required. Click on Next and click on Next. So this is going to go ahead and install all these services here. And I'm just going to check it through just to make sure that everything I need will be installed. Okay, so I now have all the features that I need. I just go ahead and click on Next. And I'm going to choose to restart the server if it needs to after the roles and features have been installed. And then click on Install. Now this is going to take a few minutes to install everything that I need. So whilst we're waiting on that, I created a file here with all the steps that needs to be taken in order to completely set up the work folder. So the first thing is to install, this is the first step I'm doing here, to install the work folders and feature plus IIS. The second part of this is to create a self-signed certificate in the IIS server. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add the certificate to the root server, and then on the workstation I'll be doing the same thing, adding the root certificate that I created on the IIS server. I'm going to import that certificate into the root certificate on the workstation that I need to connect, and lastly will be to add the work folder onto the workstations. So at this point you can pause the video and just make a note of all the steps that will be required to complete the work folder setup and installation. Okay, now the installation has completed. I'll go ahead and click on Closed. I'm getting a bit of a warning sign or an error, red flag at the top here. So let's see what's happening here. Go ahead and click on Close. Feature installation has been completed. Add roles and features. Click on Close. So I'll go ahead and restart this computer because it probably needs a restart to finish the installation and so that I can start the configuration. It didn't tell me to restart it, but I'm gonna go ahead and restart. Okay, I've now restarted the server. So the next part of this lab is to go ahead and configure the share that we want to make available in the work folders. Now, I've already actually created a share that I want to make my work folder, and that share is in data on my R drive. In shares, I've actually created this data folder and set it up as a share. If I go to properties, you can see that the way I configure it is I've given the domain users. So my NTFS permissions is set to domain users having modify access and everything below that. So read, write, modify. So I'm gonna when I set up my security access or the users that I want to access my work folder, I'm gonna add this entire group domain users as opposed to just adding individual names. So I currently set it up so that my domain users will have access to the data share here. Now over to the server manager. In order to create the work folder, I'm going to click on the file and storage services and click on work folder. And now I have to go ahead and create a sync share for the work folders. So I'm going to click on that and it opens up a wizard. I'm going to go ahead and click on next, and that's the server where the share will be located, and the share that I want to select. You'll notice here that it's already listed here because I've already created it. Okay, so this is the share. This is the folder that I'm gonna make available for the work folder. So go ahead and click on next, and I'm gonna use the default user alias here. The next option where it says user alias a domain is if you want this share to be accessible by users outside of your domain. So for the purpose of this lab, I'm just gonna leave it as a default as user alias, then click on next. Here I can give it a name. So I'm just gonna leave the default as data. We can give it a description. We can just call it work folders. Work folder sync. DER work folder sync. Click on next, and here is where I'll have to add the users or groups that will have access to the work folder share. So type in the name of the group. So I made it domain users. Click on check names, click on OK, and every account that is a member of the domain users group will have access to the share. Just click on next. And I have two options here. One is to encrypt the work folders, and the other is to automatically lock the share and require a password. Now, in a real world environment, if you're setting up this, you will probably want to enable the encrypt work folders, because this adds a layer of security when the data is being synced between the local device and on the server. So I always have the habit of checking that option on, whether I'm doing it in a real world environment or in a lab. So out of habit, and I think it's a good habit to have. Just enable the encrypt work folder so that the data will be encrypted. Now it gives you a summary of all the settings that we have just choose there, and now we click on create, and the share or the sync share is gonna go ahead and do its thing in the background and start setting up that work folder share. This will take about a minute. Oh, well, it's already completed, so let's go ahead and click on close, and now we can see that we have one share listed. So if you want to do any other share, that's the step that you'll have to go through in order to add additional sync share. For example, if you want to click, create a new, you now right click there and select new sync share and go through the wizard just like I did. Okay, so the next part of this lab will be to set up the cell sign certificate in IIS and then adding that that certificate, that self sign certificate in our root certificate. So be sure to check out part 2 of this lab to see how to get that done, and part 3 of this lab is to set up is accessing the work folder, setting up the work folder and accessing the share on the workstation. So head over to part 2 of this video to see how to do that.